Hello and welcome to Manger's Study. I am your host CJ, and this is episode 13 on Project 2025. As I'm recording this, it is the 15th of August 2024. Yeah. And there are and there are 81 days until election day in 2024. All right, so let's take a look at Project 2025's plan for the Department of State. We begin on page 171 or 204 of the PDF. Project 2025 would like to remind us that, like in so many other departments, there is a war between the president and the bureaucrats in the State Department, especially if it's a conservative president. There was a commission done over 20 years ago that says that state is suffering from a, quote, ineffective organizational structure, unquote, where, quote, policies do not serve integrated goals, and in which sound management, accountability, and leadership are lacking, unquote. Project 2025 says that this remains the case to this day. Project 2025 recommends that the next conservative president make state more effective by, quote, providing a clear foreign policy vision, selecting political officials and career diplomats that will enthusiastically turn that vision into a policy agenda, and firmly supporting the State Department as it makes the necessary institutional adjustments, unquote. Project 2025 recommends here, as they did before, placing appointees in their roles pending that confirmation, and placing the political appointees in positions that don't require confirmation. So they just want to get as many political appointees in position as soon as possible to start directing state. Also, Project 2025 wants to ensure that ambassadors reflect the administration's will. Fair enough, can't really argue with that too much. To fix the State Department, Project 2025 recommends reviewing state prior to taking office and making necessary changes via political appointees as soon as possible after inauguration, which includes putting a hold on a lot of what state does before those political appointees take their positions. Project 2025 says that there is an issue where state implements treaties by calling them agreements, or that whoever is involved bypasses the treaty stuff in the Constitution by just calling them agreements instead of treaties, and Project 2025 thinks this is unconstitutional and should be stopped. Something I'll say, and something I heard, I don't remember where I heard it. It was in one of the 50,000 podcasts or TikToks or YouTube videos that I've seen in like the last month talking about various political things. Whenever Trump became president in 2016 and assumed office in 2017, there was no plan. There was no, it was just a surprise to everybody, really, that he won. So there wasn't anything approaching a kind of plan that Project 2025 is attempting to set out for the next president, assuming that that president is, in fact, Donald Trump. Donald Trump, of course, says that he's not going to be doing Project 2025, that he's doing Agenda 47, I think is what he calls it. As far as that's concerned, I don't think it matters as much what Trump thinks, because as we could tell from his last reign as president, he wasn't very good at actually managing his people. So if there are enough people that get into office or get into the administration under him, then they would be doing Project 2025 stuff possibly without him even knowing. I personally think that would be kind of hilarious, and at the same time, probably tells you something more about the state of our republic than anything else. Project 2025 says that the State Department should use visas as diplomatic leverage. They are saying that to punish other countries' rulers that don't give visas to Americans or don't accept their citizens who have been removed from the U.S., the U.S. should punish everybody from that country, is what it's sounding like they're saying. To me, that sounds rather, stupid, immoral, and unnecessarily restrictive. But hey, that's conservatives for you. Also, Project 2025 wants to accept fewer refugees, par for the course as far as Project 2025 has been concerned. Skipping around a little bit, we have, quote, respond vigorously to the Chinese threat, unquote. Not much of substance there really in that section, just another example of Project 2025's Chinese fear-mongering. Later on, Project 2025 says that there should be an Article X against them, to which they mean they want to replicate the American Cold War strategy against the Soviet Union and direct that towards China. I'm just trying to think of all the times that we nearly accidentally went to nuclear war with the Soviet Union and how well that would play today. It wouldn't. It would be bad. This is a silly idea. Project 2025's Iran strategy is to harm Iran, and by that I mostly mean the Iranian people, through sanctions until they learn their lesson, which is a bold strategy in that it doesn't really work all that terribly often. And really, it's just immiserating a bunch of people that can't really do anything about their situation. Congratulations. Project 2025's Venezuela strategy is to help the people of Venezuela while uniting the Americas against Venezuela. Hopefully, this short section will prove moot soon enough, but I would like to reiterate that the best strategy against communist countries is to simply wait them out, because eventually they're just going to collapse. Provocative actions against them will just unite other countries with them against us. They don't even have to be like communist countries. They could be like left-leaning socialist, social democratic countries going, why are you picking on these poor Venezuelans? And they'll help the Venezuelans out. And it just would prolong everything. The U.S. doesn't have to treat Venezuela as a friend or an ally, but really, the U.S. should just leave them to their own devices. Maybe helping refugees out, things of that nature. But as far as everything else goes, everything that they're doing against them, they're hurting the Venezuelan people. Whenever there's an enemy abroad, that makes the Venezuelan people support the Venezuelan government. It's a rally around the flag effect. And it makes other countries who are a little suspicious of what the U.S. might be doing as something of an imperial power, it makes them unite and help the Venezuelan people as well, help the Venezuelan government as well, more importantly here. So really, the strategy for Venezuela should be to shrug and be like, just let Venezuela do what Venezuela's doing. We won't try to coup them. We won't try to do anything weird with them. Yeah, sure, we'll buy their oil and stuff, but really, it's just a waiting game to whenever they have some kind of economic crisis, some kind of economic collapse. And then you can't even blame that on the United States. It's just going to be purely on the Venezuelan shoulders. So I don't... The idea of so many bureaucrats and of so many politicians is that you cannot leave stuff alone. You always have to be doing something, even if you don't know if what you're doing is going to be effective. And even if you know what you're doing is ineffective and actually harmful, they don't care. They just have to be seen doing something. So if there is a problem somewhere in the world, U.S. politicians, think tank people, etc., always feel like they have to be doing something, and it's to the detriment of the United States, and it's very often to the detriment of the people that the United States is trying to, let's say, save. Project 2025 points out that there's some divisiveness amongst conservatives when it comes to Russia. Everyone agrees that Putin is bad, but some want to continue supporting Ukraine. Others want to stop helping them altogether, and others want to do something a little bit in between. Now, nothing I see in here, as of yet at least, talks about the lead up to the Russian invasion, the unintended consequences of several U.S. diplomatic and military adventures over the course of the past 30-odd years that led to this invasion. Again, the blame is on Putin, but whenever you're assigning blame, when you're assigning guilt, it is a quality, not a quantity. So there are plenty of things that the U.S. and other nations did that kind of help poke the bear and make them want to attack Ukraine. There's nothing in here about preventing that kind of thing from happening in the future. It is, to me, so much like government officials to go from one emergency to the other without at least having a couple of people look at the situation and ask, how do we keep this kind of emergency from happening in the future? Project 2025 says some vague things about North Korea, which could mean anything from writing a sternly worded letter to Kim to nuking the entire peninsula, whatever. Project 2025 wants to help the Mexican government beat the cartels that the project says are currently in charge of the state. Also, Project 2025 tells us that fentanyl is bad, imagine that, and that the U.S. should move manufacturing from across the world to Americas. This is manufacturing in general, not fentanyl manufacturing, but the U.S. should have a hemisphere concentration of manufacturing to like help out our American, North and South American friends. And also, we need to convince the rest of the Americas that they should be our friends. For the Middle East, Project 2025 wants to keep Iran from acquiring nuclear technology for the weapons that Iran doesn't want to make, and they're going to do that by hurting the people of Iran, which will certainly not have consequences to the Iranian people hating the U.S. Also, the U.S. should help Israel blow up whoever Israel wants to blow up. Next, Project 2025 wants to have other Arab countries join the Abraham Accords and wants to convince them to like us, to like the US, not China. There's a few more things, but also the US shouldn't neglect human rights concerns whenever it comes to the Middle East, according to Project 2025. So Project 2025 wants us to be best buddies with, say, Saudi Arabia, but also wants us to have them change to be more liberal, which is not going to be, it's confusing. Good luck. God be with you. You're going to fail. Sorry. In regards to sub-Saharan Africa, Project 2025 wants to shift from humanitarian aid to developmental aid, more like the good old give a man a fish versus teach a man to fish kind of thing. Project 2025 wants to counter China's Belt and Road initiatives, presumably with that developmental aid that they were talking about a little bit ago, and they want to stop trying to change African cultures, for example, how they treat LGBT people. For Europe, Project 2025 wants the U.S. to stop providing defense for countries not willing to contribute to that same defense. They say that trade should be looked at, and I agree, and I want to unilaterally declare free trade with everyone, but I doubt that is Project 2025's idea. As for Asia, Project 2025 recommends being friendly with India because, China is bad. Also, it's important to keep the Indian Ocean open for travel. The Arctic is also in here for State Department kind of focuses, and Project 2025 spends a while saying how awesome it is, and it will be. Fair enough. There's a little bit of Russia hate in here, but then Project 2025 says that we should work with Arctic nations, including Russia, to stem China's ambitions in the region. Project 2025 says the quiet part out loud when it says that UN membership, quote, must be understood as a means to goals rather than an end in and of itself, unquote. I kind of messed up the quote, but that's the gist of it. That's something you're not going to hear too many politicians say, but something that I think most political scientists would readily admit to. So Project 2025 wants to look at every international organization on a case-by-case basis to support it or not, according to whether or not it supports U.S. interests to support it. Project 2025 also spends a bit talking about how horrible the World Health Organization is. Interesting, I think, but this is also how every administration behaves always, whether that's what they say out loud or not. Oh, and yeah, the WHO is, of course, horrible, and we should bomb them, or at least ignore them or something, I don't know. Project 2025 reiterates that the State Department must be transformed, reformed, reorganized, etc. They also want to make sure that foreign assistance policy is in line with foreign policy in general. This might be a bit controversial, as it would place assistance to another country as a policy lever of foreign policy, although, to be fair, Project 2025 does specify that this would be non-emergency aid. I'm not much of a person for foreign aid, but I do get where Project 2025 is coming from here. If the U.S. is going to be giving something to someone, the U.S. should get something out of that arrangement, excepting, of course, emergency. If somebody's on fire, you put out the fire, and then you talk afterwards. But if somebody just needs help mowing the lawn, then you can talk about price. Project 2025, led by the nation's top conservatives, wants to spend more money on Voice of America in order to propagandize the people of the world with pro-American messaging. They also want America to engage in cyber diplomacy, which would be better described from my reading of the text as counter-cyber activity, diplomacy, agreement, and treaty making. But that's probably a bigger mouthful than cyber diplomacy. That ends this section. Not much terribly controversial here, I don't think. There's some reiteration of China bad, Iran bad, etc. And there's more immigration control. But other than those things, and keeping in mind that those things are major things, but they're also typical conservative things, a bit in here makes sense and would probably create a better State Department for the next conservative administration. And some of those things might even help the next progressive administration after that. Next episode, we will look at the intelligence community, starting on page 201 or 234 on the PDF. Hey, according to my calculations, we're about a quarter of the way through. Until next episode, take it easy.